the Lakers added Wes Matthews, and they lose Danny Green. So Danny Green, who I like a lot, was not super effective for them. But they bring in a guy who can maybe do some of the same things, 3-and-D. Dennis Schroder. They're going to lose Rondo, but Schroder is, we'll see if he can be playoff Rondo, but regular season Schroder last season was way better than regular season Rondo. Montrezl Harrell's a nice piece as part of a rotation, and Marc Gasol is a stretch 5. He can stretch the floor, and he can still defend. How did they make all this work from a contract standpoint? It seems like they have more money to spend than everyone else. How do they do this?
Well, they had guys that sacrificed. Wes Matthews came in at the $3.6 million biannual exception. Montrezl Harrell was at the $9.3 million mid-level, so they had those 2 exceptions there. Schroder was in a trade, of course, and then Marc came in at the veteran minimum exception, which is at $2.6 million. So that's the beauty of when you have a championship team, that veterans are willing to kind of sacrifice financially to come try to win a championship here. And I liked all the moves. I'm not as sold on Gasol as a lot of people. I just looked at him last year. Mm-hmm. I didn't think he had much gas left in the tank, especially in the playoffs here. So we'll see when we get going here if we see a little bit of a different Marc Gasol. But yeah, and then you bring Markieff Morris back, of course, on the veteran minimum exception today too. So they basically
LeBron does this in every town he's in. He did this in Cleveland. He did it in Miami. He gets all the good players who used to be really good and still have something left to take virtually no money to win a championship.
5 guys, I think, will cost you like $20 million this year, right? I mean, that's amazing, and that's the beauty of. You have LeBron or ED, and guys want to go, try to win a championship.
Got to tip my hat to 2 people, Bobby. One, Rob Pelinka, who I was very skeptical about, but he's pushed all the right buttons and he's made it all work. He's done an excellent job. And it's great being wrong about stuff. You learn something,
Makes you better, doesn't it? It makes
I love
it.
Yeah, it does. It does. No, I was wrong about Pelinka. I thought, oh, come on, what's he doing? He knew better than I did. That's one. And 2, Jeannie Buss. Jeannie Buss inherits the franchise from her father, who's by so much the greatest owner in the history of American team sports. It's embarrassing. He's lapping the field a couple times. And his dying wish, essentially, is I want this team, this family business, to keep my family together. And he therefore puts Jeannie in charge of business and Jim in charge of basketball. And Jeannie wanted to respect his wishes, stayed with Jim probably a year longer than she should have, did everything she could to try to make it work. When she finally saw, look, I have responsibility to L.A. and the Lakers to do this right, and she lets go of Jim essentially in that role. Since that moment, in other words, when the handcuffs came off Jeannie Buss, and talk about handcuffs to have on you, you're being a good daughter and family member, right, to your late great father. But as soon as she took the handcuffs off, 3 years later, they're working on a repeat, Bobby. Like, oh my God, what a stewardship the Lakers are still under Jeannie Buss. What do you make of how Michael Jordan and the Charlotte Hornets are building their team? As I've often mentioned, the irony of Jordan is he is the Michael Jordan of bad owners. But what do you think about what he's done so far this offseason?
I'm not a big fan of the Gordon Hayward signing. I really am not. I mean, I'm not comfortable committing $120 million for him. Maybe I would be comfortable in 1 year at a pretty good number, but I just get concerned on that back end of that contract, years 2, 3, and 4, and I just think it's an overpay, and they're paying for what the Gordon Hayward of the past, and maybe not even the Boston past, maybe more of the Charlotte past. I mean, the Utah past, where he was really good. And I get it, I know, and I've been in rebuilds, and you get to a point, Max, where you just want to wave the white flag and do something as an overpay and go from a 30-win team to a 40-win team and compete for an 8 seed here. And I think that's kind of where Charlotte is doing that. It's kind of it's not a Mitch Kupchak type move, because Mitch has been up front and basically said, hey, we're not going to spend our cap space. We're going to focus on Devontae Graham and PJ Washington, Miles Bridges, guys like that. We're going to draft and just kind of build it.
LaMelo Ball.
We're going to build it organically, and then all of a sudden you come in with 4 for $120 for Gordon Hayward.
You know what I think it is, Bobby? I think it is. First of all, I agree. This is the kind of move the Knicks would normally make, hilariously make. Michael Jordan now makes the Knicks not the worst run franchise. Well, they have a worse owner than Jordan, but at least they have more competent people in their front office now. I'm less of a fan of Mitch Kupchak now than I used to be, based on the last, let's say, 10 or 12 years. But it's like the Catfish Hunter signing for the Yankees in the 70s. They wanted to get to respectable, so they overpay for an old guy who helped them get to respectable, knowing the back end of the deal wouldn't be good. Of course, there's a cap in the NBA, which makes it different. But one thing I liked about Gordon Hayward on Boston is his passing was excellent in the starting lineup. And so maybe, Bobby, maybe he ages a little bit better than you might think. Like, of course not as a max contract player, but as a useful starter to a team with a lot of young talent. What do you think about that?
He fits a veteran role, and when you kind of, he becomes probably more of the number 1 or 2 option than 3 or 4 that he was in Boston here. But this is kind of we'll see where this is 3 years from now or even next year. The other thing I didn't like either, they stretched that Batum contract, and they're basically got, and about stretch provision, when you got Noah on your books in New York and Dang on the books in LA, that money just sits there, Max, and they've got $9 million sitting there for the next 3 years.
It's too bad about Batum. Batum, before he got paid and before he went to was so good, and then I don't know, he stopped looking interested to me. That's a shame, because I thought that was a good pickup when they, or at least when Batum was a free agent, when he got his contract, I thought, ooh, that's money well spent. No, it wasn't. Bobby Marks, ladies and gentlemen, ESPN NBA front office insider. Always appreciate you coming on,
Max.
Bobby.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.